FSB. FSB.
Hello and welcome to this webinar brought to you by the Federation of Small Businesses in association with Smart Energy GB. Today we are looking at how you can work smarter, not harder. And particularly we'll be looking at the technology available to you so that you can reduce your energy bills and the hassle it takes when you're deciding what energy provider or what energy system or what energy input, all of that stuff that confuses us all. We'll be looking into all of that. So I'm Dave Sharp, a proud FSB member and a sole trader. So this is of interest to me as well. And one of the things that we do know is, as business owners, as sole traders, as people in business, is that we'd rather be doing other things other than looking for how to save energy and work smarter. We want to work smarter, but we want advice. So today we've got lots of top tips, advice, particularly around smart meters for business. Now, I'm sure most of you heard of smart meters, but you might not understand or realize just how you can use them for business. So today we are joined by a great panel of experts, and together we'll look through all of those questions that you've been raising and some others as well. So I'm joined by Fleur Lawton from Smart Energy GB, Matt Das, he's from Eon Visual, and he's an actual business owner, a real business owner. So he's got some real insights from how he's used the technology. Paul Wilson is from the Federation of Small Businesses, and Jane Wilson is from Hildebrand. So welcome to everybody. We're going to crack straight on with this webinar. Remember, you can ask questions in the chat, and we will also be able to share this video later on. It is being recorded, so if you miss any part of it, don't worry, it'll be available on catch up. Let's come to you first, Fleur. Welcome. Good to see you. We think we know what smart meters are. Do we really?
Oh, brilliant to be here as well, and really good to have this session. But really simply, smart meters are digital versions of gas and electricity meters. They're being rolled out to homes and small businesses across Great Britain by energy suppliers, and they're replacing our old traditional analog meters that lots of us have still got. They digitally measure how much energy you're using, and then they send that meter reading directly back to your energy supplier. They do that via a smart data network that's secure. It works in a similar way to other sort of wireless systems. So it doesn't use your internet, doesn't use your Wi-Fi or anything like that. It uses its own secure network. They're part of a really essential upgrade to our energy system, and one that'll make it cheaper and cleaner and more efficient. And by doing that, they're modernizing our energy system. They're modernizing the way that we use energy, and that's what we're talking about today. Is sort of how we're using energy and how they can really help us with our businesses and with our energy use as well.
And so, I mean, we're going to go into quite some detail. So, in a nutshell, and why should businesses consider making the switch, as particularly those that are perhaps stuck in their ways and are traditional users of energy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is about, as I say, it's about modernizing our energy system. It's about changing the way that we use energy. You mentioned it at the beginning, energy is quite a low interest category. We've got to be honest about it. People don't want to spend time taking meter readings, sending that off, looking at different energy suppliers. So the more that we can do to digitize that and to make it simpler for people, to automate that process, the better. And there are a whole host of benefits for small businesses in doing this. I mean, one of the key things is that they accurately measure sort of how much energy you're using and send that directly to your energy supplier. You can say how often you want that to happen as well, whether it's half hourly or up to monthly. That means you don't have to waste time sending in meter readings, finding your meter, taking that meter reading, and you also get an accurate bill rather than an estimate. And that's really important in terms of thinking about budgeting, thinking about sort of your costs for your business as well.
And Smart Energy GB did some research from businesses and business owners around where they spend their time. And as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of the time it's updating social media, it might be doing your accounts, it's probably doing all the stuff that distracts you from your business. How high up on the list of your research was prioritizing moving towards smart energy?
So managing your utility bill, 22% say that they sort of take a lot of time doing that out of hours as well. So there's quite a chunk of people who, this is a task for them. And it's a task that they don't really want to be doing, don't really need to be doing as well. I mean, the other thing with information and looking at your energy bill, if you're having to give meter readings at the minute, you probably don't really understand what you're seeing either. So that's one of the benefits of smart meters is actually that visibility that they give you over your energy and over your energy spend. It's very different. Traditional analog meters, you're talking about kilowatt hours that maybe people don't really understand. I don't really understand them. Whereas actually seeing your spend in pounds and pence, being able to look at actually what it is you're using that affects your energy spend is really important. And that data from smart meters is critical to all of that. And so that data offering to, for businesses. So if you get a smart meter as a business, you can ask for up to 12 months worth of data. So you can look back at when are you spending, how are you spending, what was influencing that. From October the 1st this year as well, energy suppliers will be providing smaller business customers with sort of free and regular information about their energy use based on their smart meter data. Your energy supplier will tell you how they're going to do that, but it's likely to, be things like apps or portals and things like that, easy to understand data, which is really important again for your business.
I wish they'd taught this at school. A kilowatt hour. I mean, really, it's what we all need to know, but we very rarely get to understand. But all of that information, that data, and analysing that data, that's really, really helpful. Paul, Flea mentioned there the cost of energy. And I mean, it's been in the news now for what, 2.5 years, the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis. And that's really impacted individuals, of course, domestically, but commercially for businesses, it can be a horrendous uplift in cost. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, the energy price crisis was just so impactful and, frankly, an existential threat for a lot of small businesses. Overnight, we saw energy prices rise significantly, and that suddenly became the number one cost pressure facing small businesses, which hadn't historically been the case. So I think that forced many small businesses to take incredibly drastic action just to survive. I remember quite early on in the price crisis hearing about a hotel up in Yorkshire that had to literally shut one of its floors to try and keep its energy bills down because it had seen its bills go up by a factor of fivefold when its supplier went bust. So 2 grand a month went to 10 grand a month. And, shutting a floor, obviously that wasn't in their plans beforehand. And all of a sudden they were doing absolutely anything that they could to conserve energy. Now, luckily, FSB was able to persuade the government to put in place what was an unprecedented package of support to help many businesses, not all, unfortunately, but many businesses survive that crisis. But the legacy of that, I think, is that energy costs, and anything you can do to try and save energy and energy costs are much more towards the forefront of the minds of small business owners now than they would have been, say, 3-4 years ago.
And of course, we talk about sustainability, but the big drive to save energy was cost. But there is, of course, a positive to that, is that, in doing that, we're saving the planet, which is a good thing. Now, if you're sitting there and you've just spent that much money on your hotel, you're probably not as bothered. But in terms of prioritizing, this is here to stay, isn't it? Because if we're not talking about the cost, we're talking about sustainability and environmental issues.
Exactly. And, people's motivations will differ. So many will be motivated by the cost. And frankly, you have to be in order to keep your business competitive. But we know a lot of FSB members are worried about the climate crisis. They want to do what they can. And frankly, the best way to cut your carbon is to not use energy in the first place. And it's the cheapest way to do it as well. So that's the way to go.
And naturally, I mentioned at the top of the webinar that I'm a sole trader. And there was a point last winter where I literally sat here in a gilet with heated gloves and trying to keep warm in my office, even at home. But so I think it's across the board. It's not just the hotels, the pubs, the factories. It affects everybody in every way, doesn't it, Paul? And I'm sure your surveys at FSB reflect that?
Well, that's absolutely right. And what it means for different businesses is so different. So if you're working from home, you're in a very different situation. You're on a different type of tariff, and the things you might do to save energy might involve, putting on warm clothes and gloves, as in your case, Dave. But what we do know is that all small businesses are needing to think about this. Many of them are taking numerous actions to cut their energy costs, to cut their carbon, and they'll need to continue to do that, as I say, in order to remain competitive and to keep on that transition towards, net zero carbon.
Let's bring in Jane. Jane, you offer solutions to support businesses to reduce energy, to introduce smart energy. Tell us a little bit about those solutions and how businesses are using them effectively.
And I think I'd also like to point out that, like you, Dave and Matt, we're also a small business coping with all the costs. I think the other thing that I just add with the benefit of smart metering is that you don't have to just rely on your supplier to get access to your data now, that you can use third-party services like Hildebrand's Glow for Business, which is all about access to data so that you have actionable insight. Data is wonderful, but data has to be layered up to the information and insight layer. And that's what clearly all of us are looking for. And I think the first big benefit from the work we've done with businesses in the last 8 years is you actually eliminate bill shock with the smart meter. You don't have that awful moment, especially, as we were talking about earlier, where the contract had to be changed, your supplier went bust. You're not dreading that, at the end of the month, how am I going to cope? Because every single day, you know how much you've spent. And I know for a lot of businesses, that anxiety is a significant one. So I think that's one of the most important benefits of having a smart meter in place, is that visibility. And I think as well, from things we've seen, we're great believers in the fact that insight gives you operational benefit. And so there were a couple of examples of things we've seen in the past. So there was a chap who runs a restaurant. And because he had smart meter data he could see, he realized that his kitchen staff were all used to turning the gas on when they arrived at 8 in the morning. They didn't actually need to start cooking until 11. But with a smart meter, they literally saw that spike in the gas consumption, could see per half hour just what that was costing to do nothing other than habit, right? And with the insight, you can change those habits. And another, just a final example, was a chap running 7 or 8 shoe shops. And he was always a bit dubious about whether his staff were doing the hoovering after the shops closed every day, because his standard mandated hoover. Guess what? With that data, you could see the energy spike, because of course the shoe shop's consumption pattern's very consistent. And at 6 o'clock, well, between 6, half 6, every day you could see across all the shops, oh, good, they're doing the hoovering. And I think there's a lot of focus on energy consumption, of course, but what does energy consumption translate to? And how is that valuable to your business? That's what we try and do.
These case studies are really helpful. I just hope that that wasn't them putting the kettle on and sitting down and having a coffee.
Oh, no, we can tell you the difference between that. Have faith. Have faith.
We have faith in, well, and there you go. I'd like to just mention that. I mean, probably 3 or 4 years ago, there was quite a lot of bad publicity around smart meter technology, particularly domestically, about old systems and how reliable they were, or whether you could switch with them, and how you get stuck in them and all sorts of stuff. And presumably we're clear of all that now, are we, Jane? Do you think that that's still an issue for people?
I think it's a lot better. I think there's some elements of the media, as we know, in multiple areas of our lives, and we'll just leave the politics behind. There is a tendency to disrespect certain things, and smart meters got a bad rap. I think it's one of the reasons Smart Energy GB exists, is to counter that. So we do a lot in the domestic space. People are, on the whole, reliably getting their data, and it's so much more effective than having meter bill read. Another case study we heard, someone wanted to change supplier. They didn't have a smart meter. Their supplier came to the current supplier, said, well, you've got £4,000 outstanding on your bill, so you can't leave until you've cleared the bill.
Gosh.
So that is a typical situation. And that's another reason that even if this infrastructure is still, of course, it's not 100%, but nor was a manual meter read 100%. So you're in a much better place.
Let's bring Paul back. Paul, we're speaking there about cost and control. I mean, many, many years ago, there weren't many major companies, perhaps half a dozen. We all know the names of them, and perhaps we felt a little bit obliged that we would just go with them. We didn't understand tariffs. You might want to talk about that. Switching, whether we should be on a fixed tariff. Do you gamble? Do you watch the energy shows and think, oh, do I fix now? And what if it comes down and I've fixed at a higher rate? There's a lot of decisions to make, but presumably small businesses do have control over those choices.
Somewhat. They have some control. And, it's fair to say that most small business owners aren't going to have a burning passion for energy. They're not going to have a huge interest in that area. And that's fair enough. Some do. Some of our members are absolutely brilliant on that, but most aren't going to be. And I think there are limits to how much control a small business owner has over how much they're paying for energy. They can shop around, try and get a good deal, think about when they consume their energy, think about which tariff is best for them. And it's absolutely right to do that. But even if you do shop around, the truth is there's still a lot of factors outside of your control. That hotel that I spoke about had shopped around. They got an absolutely brilliant deal, but their supplier went bust. And then they were stuck and paying a much, much higher rate. So they'd done everything absolutely right. And they still found themselves in the position of having to deal with the fallout. And it is the small business owner and ultimately perhaps their customers who do deal with the fallout when energy prices go up, when it's costing more than they would like or need to be. And, a lot of small businesses have had to take some really difficult decisions. They saw their bills go up a lot and they had to take the decision not to pass all of that price increase on to their customers because, perhaps for a pub, that would have seen the price of a pint of beer double. Well, the customers can't afford that and they wouldn't afford that. So they had to absorb those costs. But there are things they can do as well as shop around for the right tariff for them. And I think that is about improving energy efficiency. So Jane's example around the gas and not turning it on until 11 in the morning is a brilliant example of, just a behavioral change that can make a huge difference and actually one that is driven by the insight that you get from knowing in real time what your energy is costing you. So I think that's a fantastic example. A bit more nervous about people checking up on me doing the hoovering now in light of the second example, but let's stick with the gas example first. And I think smart meters are a crucial part of helping you as a small business owner take some of that control back because ultimately what gets measured gets managed.
Well, very shortly we'll bring Matt in, who's going to give us some real world examples of how he's improved his business through using smart energy. But just one follow-up question there, Paul. I mentioned earlier about the confusion around analysing kilowatt hours and your bills. And of course, I've done this recently and I look and I'm comparing two energy providers. One is slightly higher on the standing charge, but lower on the supply. And the other one is the opposite. And I'm like, I don't know. How am I going to work out which one's best? How do I project that? And guess what? You then give up, don't you? And you say, oh, I just can't do this. What's your advice? What are small business owners doing about that?
It's extremely difficult. And, as a domestic consumer, find it hard, but business energy tariffs are that much more complicated. Again, it's very hard to compare. Now, a lot of small businesses will then therefore use energy brokers to help them get a good deal. And that's one way to get an expert in the market. But to be honest, what we at FSB would like to see is a little bit more protection for small business customers as well. We do think there's a really strong case for introducing cooling off periods, which a domestic consumer will get in order to make sure that if you have, because it's just very, very difficult to compare these things, inadvertently signed up to a bad deal, you've got 14 days to set that right. And I think that would deter, selling of deals that aren't competitive as well. So that's something that we're calling for. But yeah, there's no simple answer. Brokers can help there in that space.
And actually, what you've mentioned there with smart meters and what Fleer and Jane have both said is that in that 14-day period, if that was to be introduced, and that's something I'm sure FSB will campaign on, it's and probably Smart Energy as well, is that in those 14 days with the smart meter, you'd very quickly know whether you'd made the wrong choice.
Well, exactly. You've just got that much more information and it's coming through in real time, easy to access. It's such a difference.
Right. I mentioned earlier, Matt is a real world example. Hello, Matt. Now, tell us a little bit about your business. You and I have chatted before. This is fascinating because you've gone into this in some depth, haven't you? So bring that to life and tell people about your business and how you are managing energy.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I'm the owner of or managing director of two businesses in Hull in East Yorkshire. One is a media production company called Eon Visual Media. We make apps, websites, things like that. And the second business is a print business where we print labels that go onto packaging. So that business is Springfield Solutions, and we use a lot of energy with our printing presses on that. So our driver to sort of try and understand energy monitoring or energy consumption was a real simple one from a business owner's point of view. It was to save money, but we sort of cleverly branded it up as feeling green in terms of a communication project that we put out there for all of our staff. So we launched this about 5 years ago, and what we did know at the time was that if we switch things off when they weren't being used, we would save money and we'd be more efficient. We didn't know exactly what the detail of that meant, but we started to get some real great insights from our team. One of our operators came up with a suggestion of switching a piece of equipment off, similar to the gas example that was shared earlier, on an evening, because we don't work 24 hours. So why don't we turn these pieces of equipment off? And everybody got really nervous. You can't do that. It's going to take ages to start that up the next day. We went and spoke to the manufacturer. Sure enough, there's no reason why we couldn't turn, and there was actually 5 pieces of equipment that would generate a lot of energy. That saved £6,000 a year off our bill. Just that intervention, just being transparent with the team and asking for suggestions. So we knew what it was going to cost us through our overall bill, but we wasn't monitoring that through smart meters at the time, which then led us to then think, right, how do we get more of an overview and an insight into specifically what energy we're using and where we're using it? And that sort of led us on to smart meters, but also it led us on to sub-metering of major plant equipment as well, which I can touch on a little bit later. And as has already been mentioned, the other impact is from an environmental perspective. So we are, we're striving to become a net zero business. We're very active in that. And I think the engagement that we've had from our team, because those things are coupled together in terms of saving energy, but also having less of an impact on the environment, have really been a positive story, I guess, in terms of our team understanding that, and certainly our customers and suppliers understanding that from a net zero perspective as well.
When I was younger, my father, who was brought up during the war, used to go around and switch all the lights off and all the plug sockets, especially at night. And you would get told off if you left any lights on. So they were the original energy savers, that generation. It did backfire on me once when I started work in a new office, and at lunchtime went out. Everyone else had gone out for lunch, and I crawled under the desk and switched the main plug socket off. And when everyone came back, they'd all lost the morning's work on their computer. So it's important, isn't it? You said there, Matt, that you've got to go to the manufacturer and make sure that you can switch some of these things off, because you don't want to disable everything like your alarm system or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've got another example which I can touch on later, but yeah, that's our printing presses need to be switched on because they have airflow that's running through them. So if they are switched off on a night, they won't start up the next day. So yeah, you do need to check those things out.
Yeah, and did you mention there that you repackaged you wanted to save money, but to convince the staff, you made it a green issue. What other incentives did you use? I mean, why should people be bothered? I mean, it's horrible to say, and this probably doesn't occur in your company, but there are people who just turn up to work to get paid, and they're not that bothered about the cost to you, the business owner.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at it from a longevity perspective, but also from your customer's perspective as well. If you're going to be around in 5-10 years time, you've got to be doing something. You've got to start today. You've got to start these actions. And I think from an employee's perspective, They want some. They want some. Certainly with the crisis that's going on with the costs of living, is they want some security. And I think if you're showing to be a business that's looking at these initiatives, that we know that the government have got a net zero initiative by 2050, but if you're one of the early adopters and you're starting to do things that are going to impact us in 2050, that shows to your employees that you're serious about staying around for a long time and serious about making a positive impact in terms of not only what we do day in, day out for our customers, but for the world that we live in. So I think it's winning the hearts and minds, as they say, of your staff as well, to give them that security and that belief that they're working for an organisation that cares.
I think that's really important, and communicating that and getting ideas from the workforce, the shop floor, the offices, the people who work in there are probably so close to the action that they can come back, and every little bit helps, doesn't it? So, we went to the detail of, not leaving your TV on standby. Now, 5 years ago, no one cared. They just left it on. But if you can save 15 quid a year, or a 4-minute shower, if you can, thinking domestically, but it must be the same within the workplace, is that people can suggest those things, can't they, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, our best ideas have come not from the people that own the business, but it's come from the team that are working in, day out. That they understand their role better than we do. So it's their suggestions that have come about, really. And I'll touch on some further examples later once we've got the data and how we can dip into that. But yeah, you've got to speak to your people. You've got to engage with the team. You've got to make them understand the why. I think that's an important thing. We have 8 climate champions within our businesses now. And the reason that they step forward is because we brought in a climate change expert from Hull University to talk about what's happening and the state that the world is in terms of climate change. So we spent a full afternoon educating every member of staff on climate change.
Gosh, that's
which led
brilliant.
to 8 climate champions stepping forward and holding their hands up, so that they are now more concerned about switching that thing off and how they commute to work and all those other.
That's brilliant. I mean, I think consulting staff, giving people added responsibilities, especially if they volunteer, it's great. It's a collective approach, and that clearly is a good way to run a business. Matt, I'm going to come back to you because you mentioned there you've got some other examples that you've used, but I'm going to bring Paul back in. We mentioned research. We know that FSB does a lot of research, and not for research's sake, that data gives you ammunition to create change, or to at least lobby for change. But in your analysis of the research that you've done, how many roughly small businesses have switched to smart meter technology?
So we did a big climate change survey in 2021, and actually that showed that only 22% of small businesses had adopted smart meters at that point, which was a little surprisingly low, I think. Now, I think there are reasons for optimism. I know that government stats now show that smart meter uptake is likely to be much higher than that. And we're going again with some further research on climate change, or net zero, call it what you will, later this year, hopefully, where we'll hopefully get an updated figure that will show a much higher take up of smart meters. And that's what I would hope and expect. But for those who haven't yet got a smart meter, it's just much more difficult to know what steps to take, along the lines of what Matt's talking about, to know where you can have the biggest cost saving and therefore energy saving and therefore carbon saving. So it really is one of those steps that you can take to make life easier for yourself. And the other thing I would say related to, climate change and net zero is that more and more small companies are going to be asking by bigger companies to whom they're supplying what their carbon consumption is. This is increasingly a question that companies are asked. So again, there is just a broader need to get on top of this, and why not get on top of it sooner? Why not make a smart meter part of that plan?
Fleer, let's bring you back in. When I moved into my new build home 2.5 years ago, all of the technology was in place, the smart meter, the little reader machine. You've already taught me something. I all assumed it worked off my Wi-Fi. So when we turn the Wi-Fi off, I said, don't do that. We'll end up with a high energy bill. And don't turn that little thing off on the wall with a little display. You've already said the technology actually doesn't need any of that. It's already wired into the energy supplier's system. So on that, for those people that haven't switched to smart technology, as Paul has suggested, we're not 100% there yet. For some, it might be a bit of a hassle. You know, they might be thinking, oh, I've got to shut the business down for a day, or, you know, where am I going to put all these little things? And there's a lot of confusion is what I'm trying to say. Can you demythify it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. And to Paul's point, so the government figures at the minute show that about 57% of small businesses do already have a smart meter, but it can be quite difficult to know. If you're looking at your meter, do you know whether it's a smart meter or a traditional meter? Easy way to do that is to have a look at your bill. If on the bill it has an S after it, means it's a smart meter. If you're getting estimated bills, it means you don't have a smart meter. So those are just simple things to look at if you're not sure. Another thing I should mention here as well is that for a business, you may be offered either a SMETS, which is a smart metering specific technical meter, which is what we're talking about today. Don't use that name much because it's quite complicated, but a SMETS smart meter, or you may be offered an advanced meter as well. They both send information to your supplier about your energy use, but your SMET smart meter has two-way communication. So you get a bit more from that one. You get to see your data far more and get to interact with it. You get a choice for smaller businesses. You should be offered a smart meter, but for slightly larger businesses or larger energy use businesses, you may be offered an advanced or a smart meter, and you can choose sort of which of those you go for as well. Again, the benefits we're talking today are very much around SMETS smart meters. But in terms of installation, if you're interested in getting a smart meter, the first thing to do is to contact your energy supplier. They'll arrange for a qualified installer to come round and check to make sure that they can install the meter, that there's nothing in the way, that it's not going to, you know, and what they need to do that. So they do a bit of a site visit to make sure that everything's okay. They'll then confirm the installation date with you. Now, obviously, if you're a business and you need that out of hours or you need it on a weekend and things like that, you can request that. Most energy suppliers do that, not necessarily all. So again, have that discussion with them around when you want that installation. The installation normally takes around 2 hours, depends how complex or difficult it might be. And for part of that time, there may be, there is normally a disruption to your electricity supply. That's because they need to take out the old meter and put in the new one. That bit should only take a few minutes, assuming that all goes to plan, and they'll let you know when it's going to happen, so you can sort of plan the installation around that. They may also be able to isolate, if you need electricity on 24/7, they may also be able to isolate that supply and not have to interrupt the supply. So again, that discussion with your supplier or with your broker at the beginning is really important. Then once it's in, they test it, make sure it's all working okay. They should demonstrate how to use it as well. If you get a small screen, so some businesses will be offered a small screen so they can see pounds and pence how much they're spending, or they might talk you through different ways that you can see that data as well. And then if you need ongoing support, it's your energy supplier again that's responsible for that, so they can help you with moving forward and how you use that data.
And if you contact your own energy supplier and they come and take the time and trouble to do that, and then you switch, are they likely to come and rip the equipment out?
No, not at all. So smart meters that are being installed now and have been being installed since about 2018 can easily switch suppliers. You don't have to worry about that. It's essentially, it talks to the network, which then talks to whichever supplier you're with. But no, they won't come and rip it out. That's your smart meter.
I mean, enough of an incentive to get your smart meter in is that you don't have to go and do manual readings to update. I mean, if you're doing manual reading at my house, opening the box, it's like going a bush tucker trial. There's that many cobwebs and spiders. That should be incentive enough. But seriously, taking a reading to get things to be accurate, to do it properly, it's just too much trouble, isn't it? Which is why people get estimated bills and then they get that horrific shock. But you're saying that, you know, do it now and you can literally go down, drill down to the detail of per minute, hour, day.
Yeah, so basically you can ask your energy, you can tell your energy supplier how often you want the data to go from your smart meter to them, and therefore the data that you're seeing. And you can do that from a half-hourly basis up to a sort of monthly basis as well. So you can really drill down. Again, if they give you a screen or an app and things like that, you can see that in near real time as well for your electricity usage, which is really useful in terms of trying to understand sort of what's costing you what. I mean, I first got mine at home sort of nearly 10 years ago now. And the first thing I did was go around the house, turning everything on and off and working out what was what. My parents got one. They found out that it kept spiking at some stages. They saw that their fridge wasn't working. You know, their fridge was dodgy. So for things like that and for understanding your energy use and making it visible to you is really useful. And it's a simple thing to do. So yeah, in terms of the installation, absolutely speak to your energy supplier and see what they can do for you.
I think you can become pleasantly obsessed with it. I mean, I've boiled a kettle and watched the digit go to 2p, and then you fill half a kettle because that's all you need for a cup of tea, and it's 1p. So, hurrah! And on that note, let's go back to Jane. You know, we're talking smart meters. There are lots of solutions, aren't there, available to people that they might not be aware of to save energy. Give us some examples.
I think from our perspective, it was interesting, like Matt has done a lot of analysis. And there's a lot of really good advice, which I'm sure FSB and other sites talked about encouraging behavior change, light bulbs, etc. But the really significant changes that you can make are probably going to involve, at some level, investing in what are called the low carbon technologies. Are you going to think about solar? Are you going to think about battery? Are you going to have to think about EV charge points because you run a pub or a restaurant with a parking lot and your customers are expecting you to offer such a solution, even if you're not interested? And I think it's those larger scale solutions that are probably more interesting because they're going to make more impact. But of course, they come with the problem of carrying cost. And that then is the question is, are you a tenant or are you an owner occupier? And of course, if you're an owner occupier, you're looking at it in one way. But even if you're a tenant, don't eliminate the thinking for something. You think, oh, I'm only a tenant. Why would I have an EV charge point or why would I have solar? Well, people should look into the fact that there are people offering it on a service basis. So let's say you're a restaurant with parking, you then close your business, but it's likely to be a restaurant again the next time. So someone who's running that solution for you as a service actually won't mind because the contract can be moved on. So just even if you're not the owner occupier, don't eliminate thinking about these technologies. And what we're been doing, it's really then, if you are the owner, it's what's the CapEx involved? You know, how much is it going to spend me and how long is it before I get return on investment? And those are some of the tools we've developed because, again, back to an apologies audience, data, data, data. You must be getting very fed up with hearing that term. But you can imagine if you know exactly what you consume and when for every half an hour of a day, and then you put that in conjunction, for example, we did this around EV purchase in the domestic market, you knowing the performance of the device you're looking at buying, and then you combine that with potential different tariff structures, and we're able to put all of that together and say, this is what it looks as though it would cost you to run, which then, of course, you put your CapEx aside and you can see when your ROI is achieved. And those are the kinds of tools that are only ever truly going to be an effective assessment versus going to someone who says, oh, I can put in an EV charge point for you. And yeah, you need X. And don't worry, this is what it'll cost you. And you've got no confidence in that advice. And so for us, so much of this is about building people's confidence in the decisions they take.
I think that's really important. I remember seeing in the early days of solar, you know, we can put these on your roof and it'll pay you back in 20 years. I don't know whether I'm still going to be living here in 20 years, you know, and that's just domestically. So, yeah, for those that are, you know, have a landlord, if that's the right word, that not their own premises, they might have those decisions. But having those tools available, Jane, is really, really helpful to know that they're there to make that decision. Let's bring Matt back. Matt, now you baited us with some of the other things that you've done within your business to save energy. And I know what these are, and this goes deeper than perhaps most people have thought. So share those examples.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. There's been a number of examples. Like I say, a lot of those have been generated by the team here, from the really small things like we didn't know about our hot water boiler has an eco mode on it. So somebody found that out and put it into an eco mode. We introduced a cycle to work scheme. We've introduced the EV charging ports. We actually installed solar in June 2021, which was bloody good timing when you consider when the energy crisis hit at the end of 21, beginning of 22. So we've got 96 solar panels on the top of our building here. LED lighting, but one of the big things were sub-metering of our major plant equipment. So we identified 49 pieces of equipment, from air conditioning units to the printing presses to the finishing lines, where we understood what our overall energy consumption was within the building. What we wanted to identify was, what is that printing press using and when is it using it? And the data that we got from that was incredible. Just to Jane's point, data. Once we started making this visible to everybody in the organization, these climate champions really sort of engaged with that and said, well, why is that being left on? Why can't that be turned off? You know, all of these questions started to come out. And one great example was our air compressors that we're feeding the printing presses. And we have 2 of those on the roof of our building. They were being left on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And they were pulling 4 kilowatts all the time, constantly. And we sort of really questioned then, do the presses need that much air through the night? The manufacturer came back and said yes. So we invested in an air tank that could be filled up during the day. That energy can be diverted into the air tank and then fed into the printing presses. That saves £400 per month per air compressor. Wow. We've got 2. So it's £800 saving. And that was all through the visibility of the sub-metering dashboard. So that was a really fantastic light bulb moment. What I would say in terms of the investment that we've had to make, certainly on some of the bigger projects such as solar, LED, some of the interventions that we've made on the air tank, is the majority of those have been 40% grant funded. So fortunately, in East Yorkshire, we've had access to that over the last 3 to 5 years. So we've managed to tap into some of that, which is obviously makes that payback time, that ROI, a lot more attractive in terms of a business owner and how you do the maths and how you weigh things up. So yeah, that's been a really positive thing for us, in order for us to enable to get these projects over the line.
And when you look at those figures, I bet you wish you'd done it years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, why wait for an energy crisis to save £400 per unit per month?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And by the same token, just on that, we've researched wind. So how much energy we could generate through wind. So we looked into turbines, and I found out that where we are situated, that our average wind speed is 5 meters a second. Who knew? So that the payback time for that was about 45 years. So we haven't done that one yet.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned solar, I mean, we haven't had much sun this summer, have we?
No, true. It's been the worst year we've had them installed for, actually.
There we are. And of course, I mean, we'll perhaps come on to this if there's time later on, about selling your energy back to the grid, whatever that is. But anyway, we'll talk about that. Let's bring Jane back. Jane, Matt's just shared some fabulous examples of detailed examples of, sub-metering, that sort of thing. You have other solutions available?
We also do sub-metering hardware, because exactly that point, Matt, at a certain point, you need to understand exactly where that energy is being consumed. The other thing that we've been looking at recently, we did a big review, gosh, almost a year ago now, of the SME energy market. And we looked specifically at the process of establishing a new energy contract. And it comes back to your point, Dave, and yours, Paul. And what we discovered, it was really clear that the current market, such as it is, because the market should work efficiently and quickly, is not really what we describe as a market. In fact, we reported back to the government who are funding this project that the market's broken, and in our view, for getting new contracts. It's a nightmare. You know, you've got this tiny window where you have to take a decision. You get quotes that are in multiple formats. To your point, Dave, you had 2 quotes in a single property, and you threw your hands up in the air and said, I don't know what to do. Can you imagine? You've got multiple sites, multiple properties. I've heard a number of stories now that suppliers don't want to quote to you if you're too small, because it's not worth the business. You know, maybe you're spending $1,000, $1,200 a year on energy. Their processes can be quite intense and time consuming. So we've heard a lot of, let's say we've heard the challenges that I suspect the audience on this call face. And what we're doing is developing a tool that should be streamlining the process, both for the business and the supplier. Because to be fair to a supplier, you think about it, they're charging you £1,200 a year. To you as a small business, that's a lot of money. But if you're a supplier, most of that cost is actually paying for the underlying energy. And as a business, you know, you're paying lots of additional charges, and the supplier has to carry all of that. So we need to make it easier for them to quote for the business and for you to put your tender out. So we're developing a solution that should make that easier. So we'll present to you as a business owner, this is what we're going to share to put the tender to the market for you with the supplier. It includes a credit score. Credit scores are critical for a business. We all run businesses. We all know it's about mitigating risk. And you as a business will often have to pay more than you should because the energy supplier is concerned that you won't pay your bills. And therefore, they have to charge you that bit more to cover the risk of the bad debt.
And sometimes you have to liaise with other people, don't you? I'll give you an example. I mean, I'm involved with non-league football as a football reporter. The energy crisis affects sports clubs, community clubs quite badly, particularly for football. Floodlights, they cost an absolute fortune to run. And so they worked with the league and said, well, why can't we kick off at 2 p.m. in the winter? You know, I mean, it's a simple thing, but, you know, sometimes you just go, why did we do that?
Exactly.
You know?
And it's that, so that and then that's about insight and a contract that suits you. Yeah. Because you perhaps need to consume your energy during daylight hours, nighttime hours because of the floodlights. Maybe an energy supplier actually wants someone who's consuming a lot more at night because they've got excess to supply at that point.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do is do a much better job of finding the sweet spot between the two.
And on that, Jane, sorry to come across, but there's been a question actually submitted and you've just hit the sweet spot there about demand flexibility schemes.
Exactly. And then that's another layer. So you've got this new energy contract, we hope. And then it's all about the government. I don't know whether people are familiar with the demand flexibility scheme. So that just a very brief synopsis. Domestic has been the main focus, started in the winter of 2022-23, and it was ultimately designed to help people, encourage people to consume as little energy as possible during peak times, obviously to balance the demand on the grid. You know, a flexible infrastructure is the only way we're going to achieve net zero. And in fact, as I prepared for the session today, I did ask the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, you know, are there things you'd like to understand from the businesses out there? And what they're interested in is understanding what kind of offers are going to encourage the small businesses to participate in demand flexibility schemes. You know, in the domestic arena, it's a lot easier for you, right? You think, I'll cook my dinner an hour later. But if you're running a business and it's a restaurant, you can't say, no, everybody come back in an hour because I'm going to get paid by the demand flexibility scheme. And I think in that area, that's again where the innovation is happening. And then you come back to your low carbon technology, because if you've got a battery and you can actually feed the grid when it needs feeding, to use a much simpler metaphor, you get paid now and you'll get paid more at a peak time. And ultimately, it's all going to be a lot more complex. We're on a journey to control, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, we're in the very early days of that control. And it's very exciting times, but we all need to move much faster.
Yeah.
Because the planet is on fire and we have no time to waste. So
You're
get
right.
that smart meter.
Get it? Yes, exactly. And I grew up in the 70s, and I remember the energy strikes when we'd have power cuts. Great fun when you're 8 or 9 years old, cooking on an open fire and sitting in candlelight doing your homework. I loved it. Not suggesting we should do that between 5 and 6 every night of the week to save energy, but sometimes you've got to be creative, and like Matt did with his business, you know, give an incentive to the family. Right, let's all go out for an hour's walk in the dark. Get your hats and coats on. Anyway, I digress. Flea, Jane touched on the future. In terms of the planet, you know, it can look a bit shaky. You know, we've not got long to change this. But in terms of smart technology, what's the future looking like, and should we be excited?
Oh, absolutely. We should be excited. You know, a lot of what we've spoken about today is about data again. Well, you know, the importance of that, but about the complexity of the market. And as Jane just said, it's going to get more complex. So I think one of the critical things that that is starting to happen and will need to happen more is around automation. So the examples that Jane gave earlier, really interesting, really exciting, but you know, we can go further than that as well. They could be one-stop shops for businesses that can talk to business owners about, you know, how they want to pay their bills. Do they want, you know, regular, steady bills, or do they want to save as much money as possible, or do they want to be more sustainable, use green sources? Match that to actually what the data is telling them about their energy use, and then have a really sort of an automated but a combined package then of what works for businesses. The other thing we've touched on briefly is electric vehicles. They are becoming more commonplace. So again, as a business, being able to bill for when you use your electric vehicle for business use versus personal use and things like that, being able to split that and that sort of information. Again, these are things that the data will be able to do in the future. So we are getting there, absolutely. And we're seeing more and more sort of exciting things coming out all the time. But as Jane says, let's, you know, we need to get there. And the first really simple step is getting your smart meter for that.
And I guess, you know, it's not going to go away, and we hope it doesn't. So people need to start taking action now and sharing these case studies, because everybody thinks they're unique, and they are, you know. So if you're a hairdresser working in a salon using hair dryers, you know, you want to know how much those hair dryers are costing you per haircut, really. And presumably people can structure their pricing right down to that individual, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. It can give you far more accurate data, again, in terms of thinking about what is costing you to run your business, and therefore what your pricing structure needs to look at. On the hairdresser example, there was a lovely one nearby here who basically they were turning on. It wasn't to do with the hair dryers, but it was to do with the water heater in the back that they were using for cups of tea, which they had on all day. And just by, again, seeing that data, being able to make those small changes that can make a difference to a small business is really, really important.
I started my career at 16 in the foundry industry. I dread to think what the energy costs were in a business like that. I mean, wow. I mean, there are some businesses, Fleur, where this is going to be a bigger challenge than others. I mean, when you're using a cupola furnace, gosh, I can remember that from all those years ago, to melt iron, there aren't many choices.
Oh, absolutely. And again, this is where you need to be talking to your energy supplier, because depending on your energy use and how much energy you use depends on what the best metering solution is for you as well. But you know, whatever we're doing, most of us can see little ways, small changes that we can make that can make a difference. And again, some of the research that we found with businesses is, I mean, Matt's example is brilliant in terms of how much money he saved. But even small changes can lead to up to £400 worth of savings on your energy bills a year as well. So it's really important to be able to think about that, but to get the information that gets you there, and to get the help to do that too.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, and it's only a brief mention, Jane, because we've already covered this off. These time of use tariffs, I mean, they tend to be sort of like, as I mentioned, you know, certainly domestically 5 till 6, maybe, but maybe, I mean, we're living in a 24-hour culture. Perhaps there needs to be flexibility around that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the messages, and Paul and I should probably have a chat about this, is suppliers aren't offering enough of them at the minute, and they feel there's not demand from businesses. And so it's another reason we're making this solution. It's to say, well, actually, there are businesses who can be more flexible for whatever reason. And we need to, again, it's back to the sweet spot, because there are a lot of them in your domestic tariffs. But other than a simple day-night, unless you're a large industrial, back to your smelting pole, where you're really able to negotiate a price, they're hard to access, and yet they could make a big difference. You know, if you're running a business like manufacturing, and you do your manufacturing in the early hours, you should be able to take advantage of the same tariff that someone who's got an EV tariff has, where midnight to 4 in the morning, wonderful, cheap as chips.
And I
Wouldn't
know,
that be
Paul,
nice to have energy as cheap as chips? Sorry.
wouldn't it? Well, quite well. You say that, but the cost of chips went
I
up.
was just, as I said
Do
it,
you know
Dave,
what?
pick me up.
We all know it, but that perfectly cuts through. It affects everybody, even your takeaway food. Paul, I know that what was mentioned there by Jane, you know, that the energy companies need convincing. Well, you can give them that information. We've got thousands of people that FSB can access in terms of getting that information. And I know that FSB will be lobbying hard. I've got you on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around everybody and get your top tip for smart energy efficiency measures. And I may as well start with you, Paul, there, because I just queued you up. So Paul, top tip.
Thanks, Dave. So, I mean, two things very quickly. One, if you're looking to make changes, but you want to learn about financial incentives or what you can do, look at the UK Business Climate Hub. That has some useful information on it about financial things you can get to help, like grants or loans, etc., which I know Matt mentioned earlier. The other thing is, please do, if you haven't already, sign up to FSB's Big Voice panel. This is where we get the information to fight your corner, whether that be asking suppliers to install more smart meters, whether it be asking government to put in place an energy price support scheme, whatever it is. But we only are as strong as the data that we get in, and we can only represent your views if you respond to the surveys. If you haven't already, and thousands of you have, so thank you, but please do sign up to that.
And it works. We know it works. You gave an example at the beginning of the webinar of how effective that kind of information is. Fleur, let's bring you in. Top tip.
So, as you'd expect from me, it's about smart meters. So as a small business, you can't control everything that's going on in your business, but having a smart meter is a key step to helping you control your energy costs. You can get loads more information at smartenergygb.org as well.
Brilliant. And Jane, a quick tip from you.
Can't change what you can't measure. Matt couldn't tell you how much he'd save per air compressor without being able to measure it.
You know, what a lovely segue into Matt. Matt.
I was going to say the same thing. What gets measured gets managed. But I guess if you've got people that do work for you, engage the team, get them involved. That's been the key learning for us.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you all on this webinar. Thanks for giving up your time and joining us. And I know that you are collaborating and talking and sharing knowledge and case studies. And that's, I guess, what we do. And that's what the small business community does really, really well. So thank you to FSB for putting this webinar on. Thanks to Smart Energy GB for your support as well. And for our panelists, thanks for joining us. For everybody who's joined online or is watching on catch up, just to say that you will, if you registered for this webinar today, get an email very shortly, and in it will be much more information, plus all of those tips and, of course, any of those websites that we've directed you to for more information, so you don't need to busily write them down. So there we go. Keep saving energy. Get yourself a smart meter if you haven't already got one. Join up for those consultations through FSB, and well, keep an eye on your email for all of those tips. And if you want to watch this again on catch up, then just go to the FSB website. So there we go. I've been Dave Sharp. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and we'll see you on our next webinar.